All right, folks, welcome to lesson 5.3 in the summer session of the ninth grade math. Mr. Ryan here. So what we're going to do in this lesson is we're going to try to interpret what is called the graph of an exponential function. Okay. Now I've already introduced you to this shape, the shape of the exponential function. Put this down here. We've already seen this. We just informally understood the shapes of exponential functions. I do want to help you understand what an exponential function looks like, though. Let me give you an example. Let's go here. So when we write an exponential function, it looks something like this. We're going to say y equals, okay? And then we're going to have a base, a number, okay? Like let's say 7, and then it's going to be to the power of x, and then we might have something like minus 3 or something like that. Okay. Yeah. Let me switch to something a little thinner here. Okay. There we go. All right, so another example might be y equals, 26 to the x power plus 11. Okay, this is an exponential function. So what's happening here is, just like any function, we have a y and we have an x. We have two variables. And that's why we have a curve, because we have an infinite number of solutions. We say if x equals this, then y is equal to that. Okay. Now, it's important to understand, though we're not going to get into this right now, it's important to understand that if I did 26 to the 0 power and then added 11, 26 to the 0 power is equal to 1. And so this would be 1 plus 11, which is equal to 12. And so y would equal 12. So if x is equal to 0, then y would be equal to 12. Okay? And we'll get into this more in 10th grade math, and probably also in 11th grade math. Okay, so for now, just want to give you an idea of what an exponential function looks like. We're going to write them in lesson 5.4. In this lesson, we're actually not going to write the function. In this lesson, all I want to teach you how to do in this particular lesson is I want to show you how to identify what's called the asymptote of the function and the base of the function. Okay. The easiest way I can think of to explain the asymptote is, do you see how these curves at some point eventually flatten out? Okay. It almost looks like a horizontal line. This horizontal line right here, this y equals horizontal line, that is the horizontal asymptote, where the exponential function flattens out. That is what we call the horizontal asymptote. And the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to sketch the horizontal asymptote, okay? Then the other thing we're going to do is we're going to identify what's called the base, okay? And the base is the number that is to the power of x. So like we just did an example where it was 26 to the x power, the base was 26. More frequently, what you'll see is something more like y equals, 5 to the x power minus 3. So here's the interesting thing. The minus 3 is the asymptote. The 5 is the base. So these two pieces are the most important pieces of the function. As long as you know the asymptote and as long as you know the base, then you can very easily construct the function. And that is why I'm going to teach you how to identify the asymptote and the base, is so that we can construct the function. But like I said, we're going to construct the function in lesson 5.4. In this lesson, all we're going to do is identify the asymptote and the base. Okay, so let's write down these three steps. Write these down. If you need to, pause the video. Write these 3 steps down in your notes. Okay, we're only going to do 3 steps. First, we're going to sketch the horizontal asymptote. Okay, and when we sketch it, we're going to identify it as well, and it's going to be a y equals number. You'll see that in a minute. Sketch the horizontal asymptote and identify the horizontal asymptote. Then plot the point that is 1 unit above the asymptote on the curve. I'll show you where that is in just a few minutes. And then from that point, from this point in step 2, you're going to go 1 unit either left or right. And I'm going to show you how to know whether you go left or right. Okay, you don't get to pick whether you go left and right. The graph tells you whether you should go left or right. And I'm going to show you how to listen to the graph. Okay, after you go 1 unit left or right from this point in step 2, what you're going to do is you're going to sketch a vertical line, an up and down line. The asymptote is a horizontal line. You're going to sketch an up and down line. Okay, sketch a vertical line between the asymptote and the curve. I'm going to show you what that looks like. The length of that line is the base of the exponential function. Okay. All right, so let's do all of this, these 3 steps. Let's do it for this graph right here. As you can see, this is a positive exponential curve because positive exponential curves are flat to the left and then they go up to the right. We learned that a little while ago. Okay. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is we are going to draw the horizontal asymptote. And the way we're going to draw the horizontal asymptote is we're going to go to the flat part. Here's the flat part of the curve, and so that means if we start at the flat part and go sideways, do not go with the curve, just keep going sideways. You can see this line right here is the horizontal asymptote, okay? And so that's where we're going to graph. I'm going to go right here. Oops, here we go. Hold down right here. All right, and I'm going to draw a straight line. And then, there we go. All right, and then what I typically do is I make it a dashed line, okay? So watch this. I'm going to put some dashes in this line here. See what I'm doing there? I sketch in. Now, you're going to be able to do it on paper, so you can use a pencil. I recommend a ruler for the asymptote, okay? Make it a dashed line, okay? Oops, hang on. Let's undo that. There we go. So that's the horizontal asymptote, okay? Well, where is it? Well, if we go to the origin, from here, we're going to count up. +1, +2, +3, +4. Okay, so the answer to our question, what is the horizontal asymptote, is the horizontal asymptote is at y equals, it's always a y equals. Remember, x equals is a vertical line. Y equals is a horizontal line. This is a horizontal line, and it's at y equals 4. And so the horizontal asymptote, the equation of the horizontal asymptote is y equals 4. Okay? How did I get it? It's always y equals. How did I get 4? I went to the origin and I counted up. 1, 2, 3, 4. Once I get to the asymptote, that's my number, 4. Okay? All right. Okay, so now we're going to plot the point 1 unit above the asymptote on the curve. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the asymptote, right? 4. We're going to go up to 5. We're going to go up 1 unit, and we're going to go sideways until we hit the curve. Bam! See that? We hit the curve right there. That's the point we want. Where the line, oops, hang on. Let's come back here. Where the line that's above the asymptote, okay, hits the curve, that's where we're going to put a point, okay? So we're going to put a point right here. That's the point that we care about, okay? It says plot the point 1 unit above the asymptote on the curve. And that's what we just did. Then it says from that point, go 1 unit left or right. Okay, so on this one, we're going to go right. But on a negative exponential curve, we're going to go left. So that's it. So we're going to go left on a negative exponential curve, okay, and we're going to go right on a positive exponential curve. On any positive exponential curve, we're going to go to the right, and on any negative exponential curve, we would go to the left. Why are we going to the right? Well, we want to be in between. We want the point that we go to be in between, or the line that we go to be in between the curve and the asymptote. So do you see this line right here that's 1 unit over, and it runs between the asymptote and the curve? That's the line we want, okay? And I'm going to go ahead and it says sketch a vertical line. I'm going to make it a different color than red because our curve is already red. I'm going to make it green. There we go. All right, that sounds good. And so watch this. So here, 1 unit over. Here, this is 1 unit over. We're going to draw a vertical line from the asymptote up to the curve. There we go. If you want to put a little dot at the ends, you can do that, okay? And then here's what it says. The length of that line is the base of the exponential function. Okay, well, how long is this line right here? It's this long. How long is it? That's not a very good bracket. Let's try that again. Okay, the distance from here down to here, that's 2. See, we start here. If we measure, we go from here, 1, 2. So the length of this line is 2. Therefore, the base is 2. So the base of this exponential function is 2. And we're done, because all we're identifying today is the asymptote and the base, and we're done, okay? All right, so that's it for this example. Let's try another example. Let's do the exact same procedure, but only on a different example, okay? Here's another graph. Let's set this guy up. All right. Okay, so here's the graph. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to sketch in the horizontal asymptote, okay? And so let's, I think I'm going to make it a little bit thinner. There we go. All right, good. Okay. All right, so here's the asymptote. Here's where the graph goes flat. And so it's going to continue, whoops, sorry about that. It's going to continue right through here, okay? All right, so this is the line right here. So I'm going to start drawing that right here. And there's my straight line. That's my horizontal asymptote. Okay, and then I'm going to, like I said, I like to make it a dashed line. So there we go. Doesn't have to be beautiful. There we go. Got a dashed line. And now I want to plot a point that is 1 unit, 1 unit above. So we're going to go to the asymptote. Oh, and what is the asymptote? The asymptote at 1, 2, 3. Okay, so the asymptote is at y equals 3. Okay, then from the asymptote, we're going to go 1 unit up, and then we're going to go all the way back to the curve. Let's find out where the curve is. Whoops. Here's the curve right here. Bam. That's where we're going to put a dot. Okay, 1 unit above the asymptote on the curve. Then from there, from that point, we're going to go 1 unit over. That's right here. This is the vertical line. And we're going to draw a line from the curve, which goes all the way up to here, down to the asymptote. Along this, it has to be this vertical line. It can't be any other vertical line. It's the vertical line. Why are we going to the right? Because we're going in between the curve and the asymptote. That's what we're looking for. And this is a positive curve. That's why we're going to the right. So look at this. I want you to notice something here. Whoops, let's undo that. Here's the line. It goes from up here down to here. That's the line that we're drawing. It's going between the, in fact, I could probably do a better job if I use a straight line. If I, there we go. Whoops, that's not exactly right. Let's try it one more time. All right, from here, there we go. Look at that. Okay, look at this vertical line right here. Okay, it's 1 unit over from the point, and then from here up to here is the base. So 1, 2, 3, 4. This is it. Look, it's 4 blocks. 1 block, 2 blocks, 3 blocks, 4 blocks. So that the length of this is 4, and therefore the base of this is 4. So y equals 3 is the asymptote, okay? Asymptote, okay? All right, and that's all we have to do. So this particular graph has a base of 4. This exponential graph has a base of 4 and an asymptote of y equals 3. Let's try another one here. Here's another example. All right, great. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to draw in the asymptote. Okay, so go here. Here's the asymptote right here. Here's the flat part. We're going to keep going straight. Don't go with the curve. Just keep going straight. It's this line right here. That's the asymptote. Okay. So right here, there we go. There's the asymptote. Okay, and now we're gonna, like I said, I like to make it dashed, and so there we go. And our asymptote, where is it? Well, it's at from the origin right here. It goes up 1, 2. That's positive 2. And so we're going to say that y equals 2 is the asymptote. Okay, and the base, let's see if we can find out what the base is. So for the base, we have to go 1 unit above the asymptote, that's here, and then go back to the curve, that's right here. Bam, see that point right there. All right, so if I'll put a point right there, that's 1 unit, it's on the curve, 1 unit above the asymptote, okay? Then we're going to go 1 unit over from that. We're going to go to the right again. You might be like, why do you keep going over to the right? Because these are all positive curves. In a minute, we'll see a negative curve, and you'll see that it goes the other direction. When we go 1 unit away, we want to have the curve above us and the asymptote below us, okay? So it's this vertical line right here, and it starts here, and it goes up to here, okay? So let's go ahead and draw a vertical line there. Here, let me put some points at the end of it. I'll put a point here, and I'll go up, and I'll put a point here. There we go. And then I'll draw a vertical line. There we go. Oops, that's not exactly. Oh, there it goes. Okay, cool. And how long is this vertical line? 1, 2, 3 units. Therefore, the base of this asymptote, or of this, exponential function is 3. Okay. Let's do another example. Now, this one's a negative. This one's a negative curve. See, look, it's flat to the right and up to the left. Therefore, this one is a negative curve. Okay. So first thing we're going to do is go ahead and draw in the asymptote. Okay. Here's the flat part. It would just continue flat, which is right here. So here's the asymptote. Okay, so let's draw this. Okay, now let's go ahead and make it a dashed line, and we'll make it just erase some of the stuff in between here. There we go. Okay, all right, so now we have our asymptote. So now and let's identify where the asymptote is. Here's 0. We go +1, +2, +3. So the asymptote is at y equals 3. That's where the asymptote is. All right, and then we want to identify the base. And to identify the base, we're going to go 1 unit up from the asymptote, go 1 unit up, and then over to the curve, and bam, right there, where the line. So we go to the line 1 unit above the asymptote, and then go sideways until we hit the curve, and it's right there. And so we're gonna make that a point right there, and then we're gonna go 1 unit over. Now, previously we were going 1 unit to the right, but we want to be in between. Okay, so we're gonna go 1 unit to the left here, and we got to go between here and here. We're gonna draw a vertical line. So this line right here, and however long that line is, that is our base. And from here it goes 1, 2. So the base of this is 2. Okay? All right, let's try another example. Okay, here's another one. So we're going to identify the asymptote, and we want to identify the base. If you want to, you can pause this and try this on your own. All right, so this is a negative curve because it's flat to the right and it goes up to the left. We want the asymptote. And so I'm going to change the color here again. And here's the flat part right here. So this is the asymptote right here. Okay. So let's go right here. Start drawing. And then right there. Okay. And like I said, I like to make it dashed. So I'm going to erase some in between, make it a dashed line instead of a solid line. It's very common for people to draw an asymptote as a dashed line. Okay. And so now we've got to identify where is this asymptote. Well, here's the origin. We go up 1. Up 1. So that means the asymptote is at y equals 1. All right. Now we're going to identify that point. So we're going to go 1 unit above the asymptote over to the curve. And there it is right there. That's the point. So we're going to put a dot right there. Now we're going to go 1 unit over from the curve, which is right here, and then draw a vertical line along here between the asymptote up to the curve, which is right up here. You may think it's right here. It's not. Look, it's not quite there yet. It's the next one. Okay, it's right here. Okay. All right. So from here, 1, 2, 3, 4, and there it is. Okay. So the base is 4. Okay. All right. Let's try another one. Let's see here. This is another negative curve. Let's try this one out. Okay. I'm going to move my head out of the way, maybe over here. All right. And so here's the flat part. Oh, the flat part. This is below the x-axis, so that means that the asymptote is going to be negative. So we want to identify again. That's okay for the asymptote to be negative. That's very normal. The base. All right. So we want the asymptote first. Here's the flat part right here. So it's going to be right here. Let's go ahead and switch our colors here. All right. Start drawing it right here. And there is our, oops. There we go. Close enough. Okay. And let's make it dashed. There we go. And now we want to identify where the asymptote is. So here's the origin. We're going down 1. That's -1. So the asymptote is y equals -1. Okay. That's the asymptote. And then the base, we're going to go 1 unit up from the asymptote to the x-axis, and then let's go over, and there's the point right there. It's actually the origin. That's funny. The point that we're looking for is the origin. Then we're going to go 1 unit to the left, and we're going to measure the vertical distance between the asymptote and the curve, which looks like 2. 1 unit over, and we're going to go from here 1, 2, and there we go. And so the base here is 2. I think we could probably do maybe 1 or 2 more examples. How many do I have here? I got 2 more. Let's do this one down here. This is a negative curve. All right, so we want to identify the horizontal asymptote, and we want to identify the base. Okay. So to identify the horizontal asymptote, we're going to go to where it's flat right here, and we're going to continue right along that line. That's the horizontal asymptote. So let's go ahead and try and draw that. All right, let's see here. Oops. Let's switch over to here. Okay. All right. And there we go. And now we will, like I said, I want to make it dashed, so I'll kind of erase some spots here and there, make it dashed, and let's go ahead and count up the distance from here. 1, 2, 3, 4. So the horizontal asymptote is at 4. To find the base, we want to go 1 unit up from the asymptote and go over to where the curve is, which is right here. Okay, you know, right on the curve, and 1 unit is only 1 spot. There is only 1 spot that is 1 unit above the asymptote. Okay, and that's it. Then we're going to go 1 unit over, and this vertical line right here, we're going to measure its distance. It starts here, and it goes up to here. Okay, looks like 3. So from here goes 1, 2, 3. There we go. So the base is 3. We got 1 example left. I think there's none down here, right? Okay, we're just going to do this one now. We want to identify the horizontal asymptote, and we want to identify the base. And the asymptote looks like it's right here. Here's the flat part. This one's a positive curve because it's flat to the left and up to the right. Here's our flat part. There's the asymptote right there. Okay, so let's go ahead and draw that. And then we'll draw the asymptote here. There we go. Okay, good. And then we'll make it a dashed line like I like to make it. There we go. And now how far is the asymptote from the origin? Here's the origin. We're going down 1. Therefore, the horizontal asymptote is at y equals -1. The base, to find the base, we're going to go from the asymptote up 1 unit over to the curve, which is right this point right here. So we're going to put a dot there. Then we're going to go 1 unit. This time we're going to go to the right because it's a positive curve. And remember, we want to be in between the asymptote and the curve. So we're going to go 1 unit to the right. This is our vertical line. We're going to start right here. Okay. And we're going to count 1, 2, 3. So the base of this exponential curve is 3. Okay. All right, that's it. That's all you have to be able to do in this particular lesson is be able to identify the horizontal asymptote and then be able to identify the base of the exponential curve. Okay. All right, and then in lesson 5.4, we will actually write out the entire equation of the exponential function.